Now, back to Coastal Living on KZTV.
All right, welcome back, guys. Please welcome our first guest, Philip Blackmar with TOKC. He's an advocate and longtime friend of James, Mecklin, and the Ragan family. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Clarissa. I'm really glad to be here and happy to be supporting TOKC.
Absolutely, and everybody's familiar with the term TOKC because it's been around a long time, and you guys really make big moves in the Coastal Bend to raise awareness for pediatric cancer, especially the story of the Ragan family. So how did you come to learn about Triumph Over Kid Cancer?
Well, I was really fortunate. Actually had a great relationship with James and Mecklin, his sister, which are the co-founders of the organization. Originally, my sister was interning at Shea Physical Therapy, and she was working with James actually after his prosthetic surgery. He was 13 at the time, and he had been diagnosed with osteosarcoma. He'd had the bone in his leg replaced, and it kind of grew from there. There's all sorts of stories, and ultimately just the Ragan and Blackmar family bond built a great relationship and been involved with them ever since. So really excited to be involved in it.
Okay, so you became acquaintances, friends with James.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the changes and the struggles that you witnessed throughout his long journey. It was over 7 years, correct?
Yeah. So, you know, there's kind of two parts to that story, right? So there's what happened to James's body. Unfortunately, the evil that cancer is, it just ate at James's body. So we saw that he had his leg replaced, went from playing tennis and being an athletic young boy, then recovered, went to playing golf, and then it just continued to kind of eat at him, right? His breathing struggled, his lungs, he was in the hospital for weeks at a time. We'd go visit him. It was clearly just extremely painful, and you know, through all of that, he wanted to create TOKC to try and provide hope for other kids that were going through that. But you've got to touch on the other side with James, and that is who James is. And none of that came out in his spirit and in his mindset. So he was a super positive person. And really, he was kind of given this sentence that said, hey, this is your situation. And he took that and said, hey, what's the absolute most I can do with it? And what it was to create this legacy and this foundation that then can live on after him with the hope of bringing peace for kids that are diagnosed with this in the future. So
absolutely. We hear the story of James and the way that people remember him, and it's a positive attitude. It's wanting to make a difference, and it's choosing to do something positive and change the future of not only Coastal Bend, but any child that's affected with pediatric cancer and any form of pediatric cancer. And he's a staple person for that. He is a spokesperson, which is amazing, and it's great that we can remember him in such a positive light with a great positive attitude. Now, can you explain osteosarcoma to those that are watching at home?
Well, so I'm not going to be the best at the medical definition, but it is a form of cancer, and in James's case, a pediatric bone cancer. And one of the things with James's cancer was its ability to spread. So he had the original cancer in his leg and knee that was replaced. At first he came back and they said that the cancer was gone, and then very quickly it came back and it was back. And then basically they went through and removed different portions of his lungs, of his body, just trying to keep things under control. But unfortunately the cancer is just the way it is it continues to spread, and it's really terrible. And one of the most terrible things, and really a lot of what TOKC is about, is there's not the best research out there. They're using old drugs to treat this cancer. And so it's a really a dire situation for these kids. And these are kids, you know. Cancer is terrible for anybody, but to look at a young child that has their whole life ahead of them and to give them this diagnosis is just terrible. So TOKC is there to try and raise awareness and funding so that they can work on finding cures, so that they can get the research and get more modern drugs and more modern treatments, and provide this hope for these kids.
Exactly, and it is very important to get funding for that research because unfortunately the radiation, the chemotherapy that is the cure or that is helping is also causing damage to each individual in a different way. So it's hard to determine how it's going to affect you and what will happen in the future with that cancer, if it'll come back or not. So tell me about do that one thing.
Yeah, so I almost find that term ironic with James because James did so many things, right? But he was all about kindness and awareness. As terrible as the things that James had to go through, he always sought out to make other people's lives better. So going through the struggle on his own, he met so many kids that had cancer and that passed before him, that they were diagnosed at similar times or even after James, and they passed. And James made it a point to go out and meet with these kids and to spend time with them and to make them feel better. And so do that one thing. What it's all about is identifying who you can go out that maybe has things worse than you, send them a note, go visit them, give them a call, and that's better. I remember a specific instance when James had lost his hair, one of the times he had lost his hair, and my brother Mark and I late at night one night, just kind of a silly idea was like, we should just shave our heads, and both kind of stared at each other and
we're gonna do this?
yeah, and kind of like, well, I don't really have a good reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And so we did it, and we did it to kind of just have fun and as a joke, and over the years the Ragans have brought it up a ton of different times, and it's clear that it meant something. And I think James's point with do that one thing is you never know what that instance is going to mean to the person that you're doing it for. They might be going through a really hard time, and James was the king at doing that. And so that's his point: is get out there, visit your friends, tell them, especially when things are hard. That's when they need you. They need your love and support. So
exactly, and those little things like that. To you, it was not much, but to them, it meant everything. They're still talking about it to this day. All right, and TOKC does play a crucial role in our local community. So real quick before we go, tell me about that.
Yeah, so TOKC is kind of like the Robin Hood, right? They're fighting the fight for these kids, and they're all out. They've got volunteers going to hospitals here, visiting kids, helping relieve the parents when they need some time to think things over and just a break. They also are doing the Do That One Thing initiative.
Yes.
It's actually an initiative in schools where they're actually spreading that awareness and getting kids involved. And then they've got the doctors doing the research, which is the ultimate hope, right?
Exactly.
For these kids that are being diagnosed with this disease, that one day that they can have a cure. And that they don't have to look down the same diagnosis that James did. So
great. Well, thank you so much for joining
Absolutely.
us. Tell our viewers where they can get in touch with you guys to be involved.
So triumphoverkidcancer.org, and then 361-883-TOKC is the phone number. Look it up. James is all over the internet. If you look him up, you can find a video until 20 about him, as well as his graduation speech has been viewed countless numbers of times. So
amazing.
Tons of information out there.
Great. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so much
joining
for having
us
us
today. All right.